Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Bracha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And in this lesson, I wanted to go into a topic, something that we were discussing, yesterday, myself and a few other brothers, concerning really the way that I'm thinking about it now, at least for this lesson, is concerning studying the scriptures, right, and having a full, well-rounded understanding, okay, of the entirety of the scriptures, of the doctrine, okay, and also of the precepts, what they mean and how they support the doctrine, right? Because we know that there is one truth, and that's the doctrine that Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai has blessed us with, starting with the elders and apostles of Great Millstone on down, right? Because over the years, the Lord has polished, right, and fine-tuned the doctrine up until what we have now. And it's important to know and, be, to know and be knowledgeable concerning what it is that we teach. Because now that the gospel is being preached, throughout all the four corners of the earth via the way of the internet, you do have a lot of people like the elder Atazom in our camp. He was mentioning, like, you got so-called Christians that are coming up with what they do is they'll take some time, they'll go to they'll look for how to get in contact with Vocab Malone, their so-called ringleader. uh, and then they'll try to find ways, because they know that they can't come with just basic scriptures. So they'll try to go into the Hebrew, and now and that's forcing them to study to try and find a way to come and say, oh, look, we found this one thing right here in the scriptures that means that you guys are wrong. Right? And for that, you never know what angle they might try to come at you with. And it's not like we have to really entertain them, but concerning whatever it is that maybe, the Spirit may have a certain topic come up, it's important that we're well versed in the entirety of the scriptures. So no matter where they may try to, bring something from, we'll be able to answer that or have a defense for it, because we're also set up for the defense of the gospel. But along with that also comes sincere questions, because you may have certain sheep that are sincere that may hear something that is being said or taught by a group that is not teaching the correct doctrine of the scriptures. And it may be something niche in the scriptures, and they may come up and ask a question about it. Okay? So when you fully understand what you believe in, it's easy for you to sense when something doesn't make sense, or something doesn't add up, or something doesn't, quite match what's already in the scriptures, because we know the precepts in here support the doctrine. And so if it doesn't fall in line with that, you can easily pick up on that and do that mental scan and know, okay, whatever you're talking about is in this part of the scriptures, and this is already what this part of the scriptures is talking about. So you're either adding something, taking away something, or you're brushing over something that needs to be scrutinized. And then you question them. Pastor R says, spiritually, you take them into deep waters and drown them. Right? You drag them into the scriptures, bring them into prophecy, and then hit them with the precepts, because people always want to come and ask questions and never want to answer them. And most of the time, or a good amount of times, they don't even have a solid answer to the question they're asking. They just want to see that you don't have an answer to the question they're asking. And then to them, that's a victory. That's a win. But, regardless of how the outcome of that conversation goes, when destruction comes, you come in here to say, oh, in the Hebrew it says this, so this doesn't mean this. That's not going to deliver you at all. But we're teaching, and in teaching, not only are the sheep being fed, but we're also obeying our Lord, doing what it is that the Lord has required of us, that peradventure we may have mercy from the Lord and be delivered and gain salvation. This is Matthew 5:13. It says, ye are the salt of the earth. And this is what Yahushua said to his disciples, right? Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? And when you go into that word salt, there are a couple of different use cases, but in context of what Yahushua was saying, he was referring really to the wisdom, right? The wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. It says, um, when you look at the outline of biblical usages, there are definitions for like salt with food and salt used for other things. But the last one here says wisdom and grace exhibited in speech. And there's a precept. Let me actually see if I cross-reference this, if that'll come up. All right, I'm not seeing it here, but there's a precept that mentions let your speech always be seasoned, right? So in order for that to be the case, you need to study. You need to actually understand, study the scriptures. You know, like because everybody learns differently, but when you take the time to understand how your brain works, how you process information, you can then use that to your benefit. You can know, okay, how do I study best? You know, how can I, and you go at your own pace, but as long as you're still moving and you're covering something each day, that's to your benefit. It tells us in the book of Timothy about studying to show ourselves approved unto the Most High. And we wouldn't need to be ashamed because nobody can confound us because we're teaching the truth. The truth is already there. It's about whether you know it or not. Okay, so it says here, going back to Matthew 5:13, it says, "But if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men." Now, when you deal with actual salt, salt is used for a couple of different things, right? And in particular, when people think of salt, they think of food, right? You use it to season your food. Well, when you feed the sheep, technically speaking, right? When you feed the sheep, you're feeding them with food, right? Food that is convenient for them, which is the words of the scriptures. So that needs to be seasoned. And Slacky, I'm just making a turn out here. And so, as Yahweh Shai is saying, like with real actual salt, when you have salt that is not, as it says, it's lost its savor, the reason he said it's good for nothing but to be trodden on the foot of men is usually, like, you know, when it's about to snow, for example, or it's like heavy rain or something, usually it's snow, you'll have, at least today, the different trucks going around and they're sprinkling salt on the road because it absorbs the water and it helps to prevent the roads from being too slippery. So they did that in the ancient world, right? They would put it because when you had certain areas where the floor was you know, certain parts of the street or the temple, they would put that there for the same reason that you use it for now. But you're not going to take the good salt that you use for your food and do that with it. So that's basically what happens when you lose your savor. You're not good for the purpose in which one who has the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Lord is good for, which is to teach his word. And that's why the Lord ends up kicking certain people out, because they're no longer good for the purpose of teaching his word. But you don't want to be like that. You don't want to lose your savor. You want to have the perfect level of potency and continue to season your speech with that you may edify more and more. Verse 14, ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. So if Yahweh Shai said we are the light of the world, you want to make sure that you're a good quality light. You know, you're not the kind of light that somebody say, oh, you know, I'm gonna use this flashlight, and the time when they need it most, when the power goes out, then the damn flashlight's not working. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Verse 16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And you know what? Regardless of how much people scoff and say all these different things, you have also a lot of cases where people, and some of them are just not, the Spirit is not on them to say it, but secretly, you have a lot of them who over the years, seeing what has been happening, seeing the consistency, seeing the truth that is being taught and how it's manifesting, a lot of them have realized in their minds that, yo, what these men have been teaching is the actual truth this whole entire time. Nothing else makes sense, because there are certain things that happen and you just can't explain it away. And whatever their false teachers may be telling them, it's not making sense. And for some of them, it's an internal conflict that they have and they hold within them for a good period of time. And then eventually it's just like, nah, I can't do this anymore. Like this just not making sense, and I need answers. So some of them might say it, and some of them might just secretly just start watching the actual watching GMS videos and so on, and trying to learn. But that's because over here, right, once again, starting with the elders and apostles on down, which the Lord put the Spirit on them to teach us right, we're shining the correct light. We're shining the light that gives you direction. And that is the kind of light Yahweh Shai expects us to shine. He don't want to shine in some whack ass light that you can't even use to see shit. And here it is, you talking about, oh, I'm shining my light bright, Lord. Who's that helping? Shine bright like a diamond. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's that going to do for anybody? That's not what the Lord is looking for. So, moral of the lesson is, be aware of what you're involved in and actually study. Take the time to understand the scriptures. And all right, you know what? This I'm not too strong on this side, or I'm mainly well versed in this part of the scriptures. Well, what about this? Let me do some daily readings. Let me do get some discussions going on with brothers. And just try to keep your mind active, your spiritual muscles exercised. Okay, because we're the only ones with the actual truth of the Lord. So we have to be, as the scriptures say, apt to teach. We have to be ready. We have to be able to actually if we ain't defending, the Lord has given us the knowledge, and we're not capable of defending the correctness of the doctrine. What's the use of us? You showing the Lord. Well, the Lord's like, well, so why? Like, what's the actual purpose of giving such and such that knowledge? Like the parable the Lord gave about the individual who went and hid his talent in a napkin. It's almost like you didn't have it. If you're gonna have the truth, and yet when somebody, people come up and they're asking questions, you're not able to answer the questions. You're not able to teach effectively. You're not able to defend the scriptures. What makes you different from somebody that has a wrong doctrine? Because if the sheep come to you, they can't be fed. They can't be corrected. They can't learn anything. So that's like the equivalent of them going to somebody who doesn't have the right doctrine. They're not going to be fed the right food. They're not going to learn anything new. They can't be corrected onto the right path. But it's worse for you because you have all the ingredients you need to do those things. So the Lord starts looking at you as the individual like, well, the problem is not with the doctrine you have. The problem is not with the teachers you've been given. The problem is you. You just ain't working right. And best believe the Lord is quick. He is quick to rectify that. And that's why the scriptures say that the Lord is not a respecter of persons, because he's very quick to rectify when it comes to it. Look, when somebody dies, to the Lord, he doesn't see it the same way as we do. Right? Because we all live unto the Lord. Whether you're on the earth or in the spirit world, you're there. So the Lord might just say, call him back. Call him back. Like it's like imagine you I don't know, you sent somebody out on an errand, and the second they step out the house, they start doing some dumb shit. You just like, yo, go call him, bring him back to the house. Like, that's how trivial that is for you to just give somebody a phone call and say, yo, come back to the crib real quick. And then they come back to the house. That's how it is when the Lord's like, yo, call this person back to the spirit world. It's not a big deal for him. So, for us, it's like, damn, yo, hey, the Lord wouldn't do that because it's a big deal for you. But you're not the Lord, and the Lord is not you. And the way that you think is not how the Lord thinks. So the Lord might say, look, hey, it's time for you to go, or it's time for me to take this away from you. And now is the worst. Now is literally the worst time in history for you to lose the truth of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. I'm going to repeat that again. Now is literally the worst time in history for you to lose the truth of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. There is no other generation after this where you get to come back and redo this and rectify and fix your situation. This is the last go around. So if you lose it now, that's it. It's all about time. That's what the truck next to me says. Exclamation. Yeah, it's all about time. So you want to make sure that you guarding it. Like when you play certain video games and they give you multiple lives, and you playing, and if you run out of lives, you hit game over. Yeah, we're on the last life right now. All right. If you hit game over, you ain't coming back. You're not respawning and you're not restarting the game. There's no time. There's none of that. This is, as I say, what the guy said, there is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. This is the only day. This is the last day left, spiritually speaking. So make the best of it. And remember that whatever we do now in this time will be written of. In fact, it is being written of. It's being documented. So how you're remembered and the works you do for the Lord and all the things you do, you will not get to change, add, or remove from it once the time is up. So whatever it is, you better do it now, and you better do it fast. But with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, thou is edifying and exhorting to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.